So let's begin this short discussion on Metta. Its benefits and practice is what we will be focusing on briefly. As we all know, Metta is expounded in many discourses of the canon. The main sources are Karaniya Metta Sutta. Then there is a short discourse, Mettanisansa Sutta, and Visuddhimagga provides a detailed explanation of how to practice metta. Metta is unconditional goodwill and friendliness and benevolence toward all beings without exception. It is like the feelings of a mother towards her child, her only child. So that is what metta is briefly, its quality. The Karaniya Metta Sutta, Mettanisansa Sutta, and also Visuddhimagga provides 11 benefits of metta. This is all well known, but let's go through them to see what these benefits are. The first benefit is the ability to sleep in comfort, to fall asleep easily. As we know, there are many people who have sleep problems. So being able to sleep in comfort is one great benefit of metta. Similarly, waking up in comfort is a great benefit. When we are afflicted with certain types of illness, physical or mental, we have major problems, both falling asleep and waking up from sleep. Then not having evil dreams. Again, there are so many people who have had to face many traumatic experiences, who have nightmares all through the night. Practicing metta leads one to sleep peacefully without nightmares, without evil dreams. One who practices metta also becomes very dear to humans. And not only humans, to also non-humans. So that's another great advantage of practicing metta. And this includes protection by the divine beings. Then, one who practices metta is also protected from fire, poison, and weapons. Fire, poison, weapons, these things cannot harm a person who is practicing metta. A metta practitioner has a mind that's easily concentrated. Sometimes we experience that it is hard for us to keep our mind focused, concentrated. But if we practice metta properly, our mind gets concentrated easily. A metta practitioner also has a serene countenance, a pleasant appearance, pleasant facial expressions. For example, generally, people are afraid of their death, having to face death with a confused mind. If we practice metta diligently, we can die with an unconfused mind, which is a great blessing. And beyond all these worldly benefits, if a metta practitioner does not attain Nibbana in this very life, then they are likely to be reborn in higher realms. Given in the Mettanisansa Sutta and also Visuddhimagga. If you like to refer to Visuddhimagga, it's chapter 9 of Visuddhimagga. You can Google chapter 9 Visuddhimagga, then you get a very good explanation of Metta. However, these advantages are to be from familiarizing with thoughts of Metta, cultivating and continuously developing Metta. Regarding Metta as a vehicle of our expressions and as a treasure. Living in Metta, practicing Metta, and by establishing Metta. So it is not practicing Metta for a few minutes once in a while, although that surely have its own benefits. You can expect all these benefits only if we practice it very diligently, very ardently, and continuously. So I think it is something that we can all do quite easily. And we see its benefits almost immediately. So it is well worth making a strong determination to practice Metta. Another great advantage of Metta that the Buddha has explained in detail in many discourses is that it fosters kindness, goodwill in relationships. Therefore, it leads to harmonious living, cordial living, happy relationships. And how does that happen? It happens through the use of well-spoken words. Well-spoken words are treasures. And learning to speak well is learning to live happily, properly, and even being prepared to meet death happily. So several discourses, many discourses in the Pali canon refer to these well-spoken words, its qualities, and Buddha is the teacher who practiced well-spoken words and who taught how to speak well. Subhasita Sutta, that is in Anguttara Nikaya 5.198, is a very short discourse which describes what well-spoken words are. Well-spoken words, according to that particular discourse, is truthful, first of all. And even if it's truthful, it's not harmful. It's beneficial, actually. We don't need to say what is the truth just because it is the truth. It has to be beneficial to oneself and others, kind, and spoken at the right time. Even truthful words, beneficial words, kind words, if spoken at the wrong time, may not be well-spoken words. So these qualities of well-spoken words define skillful and virtuous speech. And this is necessary. This is necessary because it directly supports the cultivation of Metta. So we need to remember Metta is not sitting down and saying, may I be happy, may I be well, may I be free of illness. It's not just merely that. One needs to be prepared to be a Metta practitioner. And one of the basic things for that is to practice well-spoken words which has these qualities. And that's really important. If one speaks harsh words, words that hurt others, words that are harmful, unkind, spoken in an unkindly manner, then those practices have to change before one could be prepared and ready to practice metta, to radiate thoughts of metta towards oneself and others. So metta ensures that the spoken words do not harm anyone, which is very important because we all know that words can harm people more than weapons. One simple word can pierce the heart of someone and hurt more than being pierced by a weapon. Well-spoken words, which means words spoken with metta, brings peace and harmony. Peace and harmony is what is missing today in the world, as it has always been really, between friends, in families, in countries, in the world. So here is a solution, metta. So metta promotes harmony and cordial living. This is really important. We rarely think of metta in this way. Visuddhimagga describes, I have taken all this from Visuddhimagga directly. So Buddha on many occasions has referred to cordial living, harmonious living. So metta fosters kindness and goodwill in relationships. And this is, as I said, described in Subhasita Sutta, which is a short discourse. And as I said before, truthful, beneficial, kind, etc. And once the Buddha visited the Gosingha forest, and there were these three, I think they were arahants, and Buddha asked them, they were Kimbila, Nandiya, and I forget the other monk's name. How are you getting on? Are you happy? How are you living together? So what they said was, we live cordially, we live happily, we help each other. We don't speak words that hurt one another. So we live very well together. So the Buddha praised that. And that's to illustrate that metta, radiating metta, developing metta towards one another, brings about cordiality, harmonious living, happy relationships. Speech that is guided by metta is a practical expression of metta in daily life. So if we practice metta, our speech will always be making someone else happy, bringing out the best in somebody else. It will be kind, it will promote harmonious living. So the practice of metta, what we discussed so far are some of the benefits of metta. Now, how does one practice metta? What is the goal of practicing metta? Why do we do that? Now, we discussed 11 benefits of metta. The last one was about attaining Nibbana. So, practicing metta is not simply or merely for worldly benefits, although those worldly benefits are very, very important, tremendous benefits. But the true goal is to attain the goal of enlightenment. That's the true goal of practicing metta. Karaniya Metta Sutta and Visuddhimagga provide detailed instructions on practicing metta as a meditation. So it is one of the 4 sublime abodes which is given as a meditation subject after the reflections, the anusatis. So metta, karuna, compassion, mudita, and equanimity. Out of these 4 Brahma Viharas or sublime abodes, metta is the first. Now, practicing metta has at its core something very important. I like to repeat that practicing metta or metta meditation is not simply reciting the words, may I be happy, may all others be happy. It is much deeper than that. It is a way of life. And at the core of this, at the beginning of the metta practice, is overcoming anger, overcoming hate, overcoming hatred. That's very important, and Visuddhimagga describes this very, very emphatically. How does one overcome anger? I mean, we have anger in all kinds of forms. All of us have it, and all of us feel it, I think, almost every moment of the day, unless we are aware of it and we control it. It's our biggest enemy. It's our fiercest enemy. So we have to be extremely conscious of anger. It is there as an anusaya, as a sleeping defilement. It's waiting to arise at the slightest provocation. Patiganusaya. And throughout the canon, throughout the Pali texts, in the Sutta Pitaka, there are many discourses. There the Buddha provides techniques for overcoming anger, along with other defilements. This is just a few which we can practice, very, very usefully. Thought diversion is one. In fact, modern psychological therapies use this technique, thought diversion. As soon as we recognize anger, the first thing is recognizing the defilement or unwholesome thought, in this case, anger, the ability to divert the mind to another object, which is wholesome. So that is one method. You find this in several discourses. Vitakka Santana Sutta is well worth reading, repeating, and using as a day-to-day kind of guide. In Dhammapada, I think verse 2 to 3 says, conquer anger with non-anger. And this is related to thought diversion as well. Once we have the first step is being able to recognize the mind, recognize the thought, watch your mind, recognize the unwholesome thoughts. Anger is one major unwholesome thought, like a vicious viper lying low, sleeping in the mind. So once we recognize it, immediately turn the mind to another wholesome thought. And Dhammapada says, conquer anger with non-anger, wicked with goodness, stingy with generosity. So unwholesome thoughts should be replaced immediately as soon as possible by wholesome thoughts. And we can do that if we consciously practice wholesome thoughts, deeds, words throughout our life, throughout the day. Otherwise, they don't come that easily to us. So Vitakka Santana Sutta, Uttara Sutta, Dhammapada, and there are many others that give this. So it's well worth taking one of these suttas. Let's say the Vitakka Santana, it provides 5 ways of dealing with unwholesome thoughts. And if you practice that, it can be a great benefit. So it's a key quality to counteract ill will. Metta means we have to start by recognizing ill will, hatred that is in us, and conquering it as far as possible. We need to know the defilements of the mind. Without knowing the defilements, we cannot abandon them. We have to know the defilement, then only we can abandon it. We have to know who the enemy is, then only we can get rid of the enemy. It's that. There's a big point made about that in the text as well. Then we can place confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and that's also a fairly heavy statement. Shraddha, Shraddha that comes also with knowledge, wisdom. With mind free of ill will, then only the word used in the translations is suffuse, develop metta towards all beings. If you are very angry, if there is hatred in our minds all the time, if the slightest thing provokes anger, I think we are not quite ready for metta. It doesn't mean don't do metta meditation, metta practice, do, but start very consciously, very genuinely, very energetically to fight this enemy of anger, because it hurts us more than anybody else. In fact, it doesn't hurt anybody as much as it does to us. So we have to understand what exists, what is low, mean, and what is excellent, and escape this whole field of perception and liberate the mind from these so-called cancers. Yeah. So metta is to be practiced even under the most trying and adverse conditions, such as being harmed by others. It is easy to practice metta when all goes well. No issue. We can sit down and recite, may I be well and happy, may all others be well and happy. But metta is to be practiced even under the most trying and adverse conditions. So there is a beautiful discourse in Majjhima Nikaya called Pakkachupa Oada Sutta. It's the 21st discourse in Majjhima Nikaya. It illustrates that metta practice is not confined to contexts of peace and comfort. It is to be practiced in the context of patience and forbearance in the most adverse situations. Buddha gives series of examples, and the discourse ends with something truly amazing. The Buddha says, imagine, I think all of you have heard this, but it's very striking. Imagine someone with a double-edged saw cutting your limbs off. Even in that situation, you need to be able to have thoughts of metta, or rather, you should not be having thoughts of anger, hatred, etc. So that is what metta means. That is what metta means. It's given very, very strikingly in this Kakachupama Sutta. That's what we should be all aiming at. So someone who practices, who wants to genuinely practice metta, because it's worth it, because its aim, its end can be attaining Nibbana. So a person who truly knows what is good for them and understands that the state of perfect peace is attainable. Now we are coming to Karaniya Metta Sutta, Karaniya Metta Kusalena, that such a person should be skilled. Absolutely, because you have to have these skills, upright, exceedingly upright. I heard a nice example. I haven't seen this in any of the suttas I read, but I heard it from a venerable sir in Bana, that upright is riju. You don't tell lies, you don't steal. Exceedingly upright means you don't do it under any conditions, for any gain. The story is that a certain person walking in the street was, what is Pimbura? A python. Python went, he went round and round his body and was squeezing him. So in a few minutes, he was going to die because he was not able to breathe. But this man had a weapon with him, and it was in his pocket. It was a sharp knife. So the man wanted to cut him off, and he touched the knife, the money. Then He thought, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. And he took his hand off. Second time, third time. And then he thought, as long as I carry this knife with me, I get this feeling and I might do it. So he took the knife and threw it away. So that's what is meant by exceedingly upright. So gently spoken, flexible, not conceited. These are from Karaniya Metta Sutta. And we are not going to discuss each of these because, in fact, don't have the knowledge to discuss each of them. And you can actually discuss for hours each of these qualities. And but it's worth reflecting. Do we have this quality? Am I upright? Am I exceedingly upright? Am I ready to tell a small white lie to save somebody? When you say, I sometimes, when I teach, I ask the students, put your hands up if you tell a lie. Many of them put their hands up, for which I'm very grateful. And then I ask, when do you lie? And they say, to prevent my mother from, or the father from scolding my brother, or to help a friend, etc. And they say, it's okay, the intention is fine. Then you have a discussion to say that the intention may be fine, but look at yourself, see what your thought processes are. You're not upright. And quite often they agree. So we have to be exceedingly upright. Then we have to be contented with what we have, happy, and don't worry about so many different things and live complicated lives. Practitioners of Metta would be calm. Naturally, that calmness comes if you practice Metta. And your sense experiences are controlled. You are respectful and not yearn for families or clan or kith. It's amazing how that can happen, really. So they would, and also they would avoid doing anything unworthy that wiser people would criticize. All this is from Karaniya Metta Sutta. Now we can, each of those can be explained a lot. I mean, you can have like 1 hour session to discuss those. But we don't have time and it's outside the scope of the little discussion we have today here. But I came across this nice simile in the Sala Sutta, a short discourse. I think it's in Anguttara Nikaya, but I could be wrong. So the Buddha says, you need to prepare, be ready, be skilled to undertake these practices. It's like, think of a Sala Vana, where there are lots of other saplings. The name of the saplings is also given, where those have grown into short trees, small trees, and they are sucking the nutrients and not allowing the sal trees to grow. And because those trees are there, the sal trees are crooked, they're not going straight. So you need to remove all these other unwanted saplings. Remove all of them, clean it up. And then what will happen? Then the sal trees, sal saplings can go straight and healthy. So like that, we need to remove all these horrible, harmful, unwholesome things that are in our minds. Remove them, keep removing them, and leave only the wholesome thoughts, wholesome qualities in the mind. So we need to be skilled to do that. I have a little mantra for that. Watch your mind, recognize the unwholesome thoughts, remove them. You have to very quickly do that. So example of developing skills, again, this is from the Kakachupama Sutta. Yeah, sorry. So Metta is to be practiced in all postures. And now some other meditations where we take either Samatha or Samatha or even Anapanasati, we have to be in a particular posture. But Metta can be practiced in any posture and should be also whether you're standing, walking, seated, lying down, anything else, you can practice metta and should. So one maintains thoughts of metta free from drowsiness. There's one example given, one who is getting ready to practice metta, like say have meals and then you're ready to practice, but after meals one can feel drowsy, lethargic. So make sure you don't feel those when you sit down to do metta meditation or any meditation for that matter. Then once this preparatory work is done, mindfully, the practitioner starts meditating and meditates and develops metta. And then he reaches a stage where he does not hold fixed or wrong views. In this way, the practitioner lets go of the views, is spontaneously ethical, then have perfect insight. Of course, that statement, between that statement and the previous, there's a lot of development that happens in the meditator. And they would leave behind the craving for sense pleasures and completely free themselves of the sansaric bonds. So metta meditation, even I used to think earlier, is a samatha bhavana, and it's not going to help us attain nibbana. It does. And you can do it in such a way with nibbana as a goal. And then there are several ways of developing metta. One could think like this: may all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. In gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Then this is what Karaniya Metta Sutta says. Whatever living beings there may be, weak or strong, omitting none. This is extremely important. No discrimination, no leaving anyone behind. The great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, living near or far away, born and to be born, may they all be at ease. See, the Buddha didn't leave anyone behind, right? All, without exception, without discrimination. But if you think about this, we do have some issues. And the Visuddhimagga brings that out. Let's see what that is. Karaniya Metta Sutta goes on, let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. So in Metta Sutta, implicitly, it is a fight against ill will, hatred, overcoming those very unwholesome, very, very dangerous, harmful pleasures. The most beautiful example is this, even as a mother protects with her life her child, the only child. I mean, there's hardly anyone who cannot understand this feeling. One should radiate boundless metta, boundless, no boundaries, to all beings in the entire universe. And you know the words which are very familiar: upwards, downwards, outwards, unbounded, free from hatred and ill will. So hatred and ill will, these are the unwholesome thoughts that we should be constantly aware of and get rid of, temporarily at least, when we are practicing metta and to practice metta. So that is from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Now, Visuddhimagga says these: first sever all impediments and learn the subject of meditation, metta. So that's fine. We have to learn about it. Be seated comfortably. Contemplate on the dangers of hatred and advantages of metta. So Visuddhimagga makes a point to say that. You don't start metta meditation immediately. Contemplate on the dangers of hatred. And if you read, I'm sure you know, even a few discourses from Majjhima Nikaya or Digha Nikaya, there is so much we can understand about hatred. And then develop metta to seclude the mind from hatred, which is a danger, and to introduce the mind patience as seen as an advantage. So it's these two, ill will, hatred versus patience. Metta should not be developed at first towards. There are some people towards whom we should not develop metta. Just think who they can be. But the word at first is important. Now, who are these people? An antipathetic person, opposite of empathetic person. One who is always hostile, not never ready to be friendly. A dearly loved person, maybe your best friend, a spouse, a child. A neutral person, and a hostile person. So a beginner of metta meditation should not include these people or should not think of any one of these as the object of meditation, as the person to whom metta is to be developed. Other than these four, antipathetic person, a dearly loved person, a very close friend, relative, child, or a neutral person, normal friend, or a hostile person, these four persons. Other than these four, there are two others that one should not consider, and that is a person of the opposite sex or a dead person. And there are little stories in Visuddhimagga to illustrate this. Someone got the instruction from someone else who to develop metta for. And he was told, develop metta for someone who he dearly loves. So that night, he was in a room, closed the door, and then he was doing this metta meditation. But the whole night, he was banging on the door of that room, wanting to get out. He didn't realize that it was at the door. It's because he was meditating. He was doing metta meditation on his wife. And naturally, then unwholesome thoughts arose in his mind. And he wanted to escape this room. He did not even have sense to realize that there's a door and the door is closed. So same thing with dead people. There are stories in Visuddhimagga, you can read them. It's chapter 9, about how someone has been trying to develop metta towards a teacher, and it wasn't developing. His mind was not concentrating. So he met his teacher, and the teacher said, seek the meditation object. Tried to see where that teacher was, and that teacher had passed away. So naturally, he could not attain jhana or develop the metta meditation. Therefore, but these words are important. At first, when you start metta meditation in earnest, we don't consider these people specifically. So that is not to be done. Then, again, according to Visuddhimagga, the meditator first suffuses oneself with metta. First, the self. May I be happy and free from suffering. Or may I keep myself free from enmity, affliction, and anxiety, and live happily. So these you could not merely words, but think, contemplate, actually suffuse yourself with these thoughts. And then if the meditator wishes to radiate metta towards all others, it is possible to choose a dearly loved person, a neutral person, and then a hostile person, in that order. Karaniya Metta Sutta does not give this kind of information. So it's good for us to reflect. Then again, the issue of anger, resentment is brought out very emphatically in Visuddhimagga. It says, and now you could develop metta towards a dearly loved friend, and then that when that is developed, you could enter the first jhana because it's through concentration. Or then you could also do that for a neutral person. But you don't start with a hostile person. So when you find that you cannot overcome resentment towards a hostile person, we have to fight that. We have to overcome that resentment because we cannot have metta towards our dearly loved people or neutral people and then have resentment towards hostile people. That means the mind, the metta, is not fully developed. At this point, Visuddhimagga says, try one of these several methods to overcome that resentment. And I will go over a few of them. One is this. First, take the dearly loved person, enter the first jhana, come out of it, and then focus on the hostile person. And like that. If that doesn't work, if the resentment still persists, admonish yourself. And the example given is, think of the simile, the parable of the double-edged sword. Even when you are cut with the double-edged sword, you have to still, you cannot have resentment if you are actually practicing metta. So think of the negative consequences or rather, yes, of resentment, of anger, of hatred. And there's an example to say, if somebody is causing you harm, or if you have a resentment against that person because he scolded you or harmed you or did whatever, if you also react, if you give back in kind, meaning do the same things, then what are you? Think like that. So one example given is, think of an ember burning at both ends. And in the middle, it's full of dirt, let's say. So when you touch that ember, burning ember, to hurt the enemy, who are you hurting? First, you are hurting yourself. You're getting all that dirt onto you and you're going to be burnt, injured. So admonish yourself, contemplate, reflect on the ill effects of anger. Then I have also seen many discourses about this. Sometimes we don't like a person. We think that person is harmful, he's hurting us. Okay, so what do? Find something to appreciate in that person. Maybe his words are very sharp, hurtful, but maybe he doesn't think like that. Maybe his thoughts are good. Appreciate the thoughts, forget the words. Or maybe his deeds are okay, although he speaks badly. Find whatever is good and appreciate whatever is good and then try to get over the resentment. If nothing is there that you can think of, what do you do then? Buddha then says, not the Buddha, it's Visuddhimagga, but also in the discourses we find this, if there is nothing good, have compassion. Have compassion. Think of that person as having to suffer consequences of his words, deeds, and thoughts very, very soon. Where is he going to end up after death? And have compassion. Once you have compassion, it's a bit easier to also have metta. Try that. If that also persists, doesn't help. If resentment still persists in us, then think of the Bodhisattva, the Jataka stories. And several examples are given. One example is in one of his early lives as a Bodhisattva, uh, some enemies took him and lots of other people and buried alive, only with the head above the ground. And with the help of some jackals in the night, he was able to come out of the grave. And then I actually forget the rest. And then somehow he did not act on anger. Well, there's another one. Mahapatapa king, Bodhisattva was his son with the name Dharmapala, and the father ordered the child's limbs to be severed, hands and legs. And the mother was there crying. And the father was not contented even after lopping off the hands and the legs of the child. He ordered the head to be lopped off. And even then, the Bodhisattva did not feel resentment. So think of those and say, try to get rid of the resentment. Reflect that the hostile person may have been, then if that doesn't work also, we have to think that this samsara is long, incalculably long, and we may have been, or this person towards whom we have resentment may have been our father, mother, son, friend, someone who helped. So think like that and see whether you can get over the resentment. If that doesn't also work, reflect on the advantages of Metta as in the Metta Sutta. And think that you are going to be denied of all those advantages if you're going to harbor this resentment. If that also doesn't work, then see with whom, towards whom do you have this resentment? Is it the person's hair, face, limbs, or is it the Patavi, Apo, Tejo kind of, qualities of the Rupa or the mind? Who is it that you are angry with? And see whether you need to be angry with. And finally, the Buddha says, if everything doesn't work, if you still feel resentment, try to give him a gift. Right? And so a gift for taming the untamed, a gift for every kind of good. Through giving gifts, they do unbend and condescend to kindly speech. So there is so very much that we can also add to our lives. So the Bodhisattva, when he was born as Dharmapala and the father ordered to behead him after chopping off the limbs, the 4 limbs, Bodhisattva said he saw 4 people. And the 4 people were his father, who ordered to cut off his limbs and head, the mother who was weeping, crying, the man who was cutting him, and himself. And supposing someone comes and asks 4 people who are sitting there together that there is a robber coming and there's a man coming and that man wants to behead one of you because the queen wants the blood to for a puja. What would you say? Would you say not me, any one of the other 3? Or you would say not any one of the other 3, please take my head. Which do you think is right? Who is a noble person. None of these, neither of them. Because if you have meditation, metta developed to the highest extent, you can't discriminate yourself. You have to have equal metta to all beings. Myself first or whatever, to start it easy, and the others. So that was another example. The four, that is himself, the dear friend, the neutral, and the hostile one. So you need to treat all four equally, then only the meditator is skilled. Kindly towards all beings. So when a bhikkhu's barriers have broken, have all four been broken down, and all four treated with equal amity. So when the barriers are broken down, the meditator attains the first jhana. He then pervades all beings in all directions with metta. You can see the diagram I have here. So no one is exempted. Thoughts of metta radiated to every single being, all beings in equal measure, to yourself and to all others. That is when metta is developed to the highest extent. So anger is what I saw coming out in this Visuddhimagga description. There's one point where it says, if you get angry, then maybe you make him suffer, maybe not. Him meaning your enemy. Though with the hurt that anger brings, you certainly are punished now. So when we are angry, we punish ourselves right now. Think about it right now, not anyone else. There is also a lot of research done recently, in the sense last 20 or so years, about the various activities, particularly the brain activity, using techniques called imaging, particularly fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging. And there's so many papers out there you can Google and find, where they find during metta meditation specifically, certain areas of the brain get activated. So they are functional. And those areas, one example is what is called amygdala, which is responsible for regulating emotions, insula, and several others. They have noted changes. That's just one study. It's very hard to find people to do these studies with, because you need people who have meditated for a long time and meditated well, but evidence is gathering. However, there are limitations in these studies because the samples are always very biased. Okay. But evidence is gathering. We don't need this kind of evidence, but it is nice to see how the physiological and the nervous systems are affected positively through thoughts of metta. So fMRI studies increased activation in the insula and what they call anterior cingulate cortex, therefore enhance the ability to promote emotions and generate compassion. Why I selected this is most of the research refers to better ability to regulate emotions and develop compassion. And even post-traumatic stress disorder people, that is people who have suffered tragic incidents, traumas, and afterwards they relive those experiences, even they have been helped. So metta meditation reduces cortisol levels, for example, and shifts the autonomic nervous system towards parasympathetic dominance, promoting a state of calm and repair. These are all fragmentary evidence, but they are getting together. And so in practice then, metta is a way of life that guides thoughts. It's a way of life. I really like to say that guides thoughts, speech, and actions to be conducive to the well-being of all. So it's not us sitting down for a few minutes and saying these words. It's much, much more than that. It's a way of life. It promotes, this is the beauty of it. It promotes harmonious, happy, and peaceful living by transforming interpersonal relationships. Interpersonal relationships is all there is to life, to be happy in our families, with whoever we move with. And we spoil that beautiful chance by blurting out words that are not guided by metta. Above all, it is a meditative practice now that can bring high levels of concentrations, the jhanas, and finally, the first, second, third, fourth jhana. Then you can go to vipassana thereafter, like any other meditation, leading to eradication of defilements, leading to the ultimate bliss of nibbana. And may we all be able to radiate metta to ourselves, to all beings without exception, under all conditions, including the most trying and adverse situations, and enjoy its benefits in this life, reach higher states of concentration, and destroy all asavas, defilements, to attain nibbana, the highest bliss of all. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Soma, for that beautiful exposition of the practice of metta and the importance of metta and living in metta. And thank you very much for explaining that through metta and the permeation of metta into our minds, where all defilements are eradicated, can lead to enlightenment. And I think that's implied in the, actually it's stated in the Paraniyamitta Sutta, because the last stanza says, the very last stanza points to that. So I think this is a very good, shall I say, basis for us to develop metta and to actually practice it in our daily lives. And I think you gave a lot of practical examples of how we can improve our thinking so that instead of being guided by hatred and ill will and so on, which actually we are now bombarded with, because the entire news media actually is based on cruelty, ill will, wars, hatred. You know, these are the items that are newsworthy nowadays. Nobody reports on some act of kindness that somebody has done, or somebody who has, acted with so much of metta. Those are not newsworthy items. So we who are living in the world today, we are bombarded by stories of hatred and ill will. So to practice metta, I think will free us from this world of hatred and promote enlightenment. So I don't know whether there are any questions from the audience. I can't see the screen to find out whether there are people who have questions. Any questions or comments? Or also, Venerable Olamde Ananda, I don't know whether you're still there. There are people, yeah, Bante is there, but it's mic is muted. Venerable sir, do you want to unmute your mic and say anything? I'm not sure whether you are still there. From the audience, we don't seem to be getting any questions. Sorry, from the listeners on Zoom, we are not getting any questions. So from the audience, can we have a question? Yes, please. Can you come up and then please direct your question into this microphone so that our audience can also share in the discussion. Otherwise, they will not hear anything. So please, yeah. And hold it right up to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Soma, for the exhibition of practicing. And your formulation, like it's a way of life. Metta is a way of life. That's said very, very important at this time of yes. And in regard to the fact that I'm currently a Metta talked about mothers, about children, a mother's love for a child, some basis for spreading Metta. And when we come back to all the children who are dying in Gaza or in the Middle East and whatever, and one wonders how you sort of, come to terms with that, because I also feels upset and perhaps angry. So, as you said, also there's kindness of you're not being able to people around us, but like was unjust. So, how do you sort of deal with that? And I think sometimes anger or a sense of wrongness or discomfort, and you also possibly act do things kindly or way. So, first of all, living is complex. I think, you have to, you said all the ways in which to deal with anger. But I sort of personally wanted to say that my way of dealing with the discomfort is to actually think critically and to analyze the situation. Others same for what they want to balance. So it's contained in that way.
That it is, so that's the hardest part of it. And I think, so the question was, okay, how can we not present, we not angry with people who are doing such atrocious, unbelievable, because they are unforgivable crimes against children. Yeah, so that's the question. But you yourself gave the answer to that also, I think. Where do we react with anger? Or are there other strategies? Can we use wisdom? Can we use kindness, metta, to find solutions? Because anger, so far, has not helped enough. I mean, the superpowers are coming forth to do even more damage through very selfish motives. Nobody has come forward. I'm not a follower of, I must say, of incidents, but I don't think anybody has come forward to do anything, first of all, intelligently, then with kindness, with the intention of helping. All the superpowers have come forward with the intention of benefiting from what's going on. So the thing is, even in these situations, acting with anger, I don't think leads to a solution. But acting with wisdom and kindness can lead to a solution. I think I'm not sure though. Yeah.
I think I'd like to add to what Darini has said, because the situation in Gaza is, I think, perhaps the worst form of human rights violations and genocide that we have seen in our lifetime, because we were, of course, post World War II, so we didn't see the genocide of the Jewish people in Germany. But I think this is on a scale that is unprecedented, because the largest number of victims have been women and children, whereas in other wars, that has not necessarily been the case, although even since the World War, actually, since the World War, most conflicts have resulted in greater deaths of women and children than combatants. So combatants, by and large, are the fewest number of casualties compared to the women and children. So in this situation, I also have the same concern that Darini has. And of course, being committed to the practice of Metta, knowing that, we are in the Maitreya Hall, and I have been coming here to the Maitreya Hall for, I don't know how many years. Maitreya is something that we are trying to cultivate, and all the time, recognizing angry thoughts when it comes, is something that we are doing all the time. So something that I've been thinking of in this Gaza problem, I'm thinking that the Buddha very clearly stated that every action has a reaction. And the Dhammapada starts with the words, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. He says, mind is the forerunner of all things good and evil. If with a pure mind one speaks or acts, happiness follows like a never departing shadow. If with an impure mind one speaks or acts, sorrow follows like the wheel, the hoof of dogs. So I always think that all these people who are inflicting so much of damage, causing so many deaths, brutal deaths, inflicting starvation on people, they have to suffer the consequences that the Buddha has very clearly explained. So I am trying to get on to one of the points that you mentioned, that actually we have to have compassion for these people who are committing such heinous crimes, because the consequences of their actions, they themselves will have to face. And in that regard, I am also engaging in another exercise. I sometimes look at people who have done very, very bad things, and I try to follow their history. And I have seen what violent ends they have come to. And you can engage in the same exercise. So that is something that we as Buddhists can contemplate on. So having hatred towards those people is not going to benefit us, because it only harms us. But certainly doing something positive, creating awareness, and because I think global awareness is something actually which is beginning to work, because already Netanyahu has been branded as being a perpetrator of genocide, and he cannot visit any country that belongs to the United Nations, because they have to take action against it. But of course, we know there is a lot of hypocrisy. But those things are in place, and let us hope that something will happen. And the other very important thing about Buddhism is that nothing is permanent. So this is not a permanent situation. And let us hope that this, just like everything else, will be subject to the law of anicca, and it will end. So those are the things that I'm thinking of in terms of these heinous crimes that are being perpetrated today. I know Soma.
That's fine, I think to see it.
Are there any other questions or comments? So I think you have to have the last word.
I think your words were last words. That's funny. Yes. So meeting anger with anger, according to the Buddha's words, is not the solution. I think what we have been lacking is kindness, metta, and wisdom too. So we have leaders, people who have these qualities and are willing to come forward, then we can find a solution for these large-scale heinous crimes, as Anuja said. But as for our own lives, I think we should have known skills for any resentment or anger. Let's meet anger with metta.
So actually, the angry people are digging their own graves. This is another thing that I've observed, how people dig their own graves and get into them. You can see it all. People digging their own graves and getting into it. And let's think of, what happened to Hitler? How did he die? Right? So, and also even in Sri Lanka, people have perpetrated various crimes. We know how their lives ended, right? So we have to have compassion for them. So we can turn the anger into compassion, and their, inconceivable ignorance of the consequences of their own actions. So let us now reflect on this wonderful talk we have heard, and let us resolve that we in our lives have to infuse ourselves with metta and practice what Soma has explained to us in such detail and with such clarity. So because Soma, you very clearly said that the practice of metta can lead to enlightenment. So it is, I feel, a very good pathway for us to follow, because in our daily lives, we have so many opportunities to practice metta. So it's something that we can practice in our daily lives and enhance our progress towards becoming a metta person. I don't know what to call it, a metta practitioner. So let us share this merit with all beings. Manu, would you like to start the class?